Then I'm like,
Sure.
yeah, I'm pretty good at this. So I'm like rewording my Google reviews. So if you start reading my recent Google reviews, which I know you follow me, thank you, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're quite well worded. And it's
Quite well.
because ChatGPT took my review and made it better. All right, guys, welcome to the Make Trades Great Again podcast. Andy, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Pretty good.
This is actually me. I don't know how to prove that. Maybe can you see there's my scar from my surgery. There you go. You know, it's not a robot.
That's where they recharge you.
That's where they recharge me right there.
Yeah. Just inserted the wireless sensor, the wireless charging ports.
I was trying to debunk the idea. We're going to talk about robots today, ChatGPT or OpenAI, or I guess artificial intelligence, right?
There you go.
I wanted to prove it was an actual person, as if some robot's going to impersonate me.
Good luck.
Off the air before we hit record, we were talking a little bit about artificial intelligence, how we've used it, each of us. And I think in a couple of ways we've used it very similar to one another, but I've started to do a little bit more. I've kind of like started to walk a little deeper into the water recently. Yeah. And I thought, let's talk about how we've been using it and kind of where we see it able to help us. And I don't know, we're not experts on this, right? I'm sure somebody listening is going to be like, oh, God, these guys have no idea what they're talking about.
Probably likely.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk.
I think that goes for every episode.
Yeah. No, you're right. I think, I don't think you're wrong. I wanted to first bring up what I asked it this morning. And I think there's just so much, like, first of all, let me say a couple of things. Like, I'm super polite. I use ChatGPT.
Right.
I'm on the 4.0 or whatever now. And I should preface this whole conversation by saying I elected this past week to pay for its extended capabilities. Like, to get more out of it, I decided I'm going to pay $20 a month to use it. Okay.
Right.
They're not paying me to talk about this by any means. Why would they? They don't need no influencers But and then, by the way, everybody's talking about this. Turn on the news, it comes up every single day. But I decided to pay for it, and here's why. You can use it for free. You create a login, like ChatGPT, for example, like you have, and you can just ask it questions, or you can be like, what's the best way to wire a transformer? For a 208 to 110 transformer, or step down. You know what I mean? Like, give me an example of like.
How do you wire a multi-tap transformer in a furnace?
There you go. And it'll literally tell you. If you pay, it'll start giving you diagrams, and it'll start giving you images, and like you can have it do those cool images where you might have saw on my Instagram last week where I'm like, what are we going to see at the Milwaukee pipeline? And I start typing in funky names of tools, and it gives me a picture of it. Like you've seen all the images all over, right? Yeah. Well, you have to pay for that. You don't get that one for free, at least not right now. And then I was quickly vindicated, or I guess ChatGPT was. I decided to pay for it. I did these images. That was kind of the impetus of me paying for it. I wanted to do something for Mechanical Hub, and I was looking at some different things about using it to make YouTube thumbnails, because that is one of the things that I will be honest with you, is one of the things that keeps me from updating my YouTube content on a very regular basis is having compelling and eye-catching thumbnails, which is just straight up going to be a requirement for your stuff to be seen in like this, the side panel of YouTube and stuff like that. Right. Unless you have some like major subscriber following, you're not going to get there without good thumbnails. So, I decided, you know what? I can have ChatGPT help me with these things. But it's a paid service. And it turns out when I found out when you start paying for it, there's like a dozen or more different versions of ChatGPT. Not just like 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, but there's like GPT video. It'll help you frickin' make a video. I'm not even kidding you. It's insane. It's insanity. It'll, ChatGPT thumbnails. That is literally what it's called, and it'll help you make YouTube thumbnails. Okay, all of these I think are just kind of in the process of like in their infancy of what they can do, what they offer you, and they'll probably get better. Hopefully,
they're improving. Yeah.
Well, I had to come up with one, and I thought it was pretty cool, and I actually used it for a recent Make Trades Great Again YouTube video, or an episode where we talked about the Milwaukee cutter and the Weehaw screwdrivers and stuff like that. I had it make me a thumbnail for that, and you might have seen it. It's like this weird looking like Milwaukee tool that looks like a pistol kind of thing. Like, I'm like, yeah, cool, I'll use it.
Perfect.
Yep. It's pretty rando on the images things, but it's really neat to look at. It's just not going to be like, you could pick apart the images very easily. Oh, that word's not spelled.
Look for the spelling.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yep. That's the one that surprises me.
The spelling,
because,
like logos and stuff like that.
Yeah, Dylan and I were screwing around here. I don't know, 3 weeks ago, or something like that. And he's like, he and one of the other scouts were trying to working on a possible revamp of the Troop logo.
Okay,
right.
Sure.
And so he's got a buddy of his that is in a band, and kind of like what Ethan does, pretty darn talented, I guess is the word, when it comes to drawing stuff like that. So this guy was drawing this thing up, and I'm like, that's super cool. If that's what you want to do, and we just got to send it to the art shop at the where who's going to do the printing, and then they'll redo it and put it on a file. Okay. And he's like, well, yeah. And so they were having trouble communicating like what it is they want. I'm like, have you tried using like AI to do this? I'm just curious, like, go onto Fiverr and punch in, because I said, that's basically what that is.
Fiverr, and then there's people that are doing it. Well, they're probably using it.
Right. Though. But their base starting is an AI search.
Oh, I got you. Yeah.
You know what I mean? The one they generate in 10 seconds or whatever, where they give you like 10 different previews, based on a couple of things. And so he started playing with, Windows has got one now. I can't remember what the heck they call it. Anyway, on the desktop computer, there's a little tab down in the lower right corner.
Microsoft has it? Okay.
Yep. And so it's right on your desktop. You just click it, and it opens up a browser. It may be a function of Bing or something.
Okay. But I think Microsoft works with OpenAI, which is ChatGPT is open. That's the company.
Got it.
You know what? Why don't we? We should be responsible and
to get the journalism rolling here.
I'm just going to type it in. Microsoft AI powered by Azure.
That's Azure. The one. Copilot.
And it's
Copilot. Copilot AI is the one that's I saw.
And it's I don't think it has anything to do with OpenAI, and I apologize for that. Okay. Now that we've cleared that up, keep going. So he used Microsoft.
So I mean, we kind of rolled through a few of those, and it came down to basically saying, make me a logo for, Troop 1909 in Missoula, Montana, and include mountains and someone hiking in the logo.
I can see the logo now.
And it came back. Yeah, it came back with some really cool looking logos. They were very complex. To the extent where, screen printing would probably
you gotta simplify them.
Not be great.
You could probably filter that out though. Like, that it is friendly for screen printing and embroidery, something like that.
Yeah. What surprised me though is that almost every word in it was spelled wrong.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I was like, interesting. What's going on here? And then I thought, I wonder, is this part of that paid, non-paid?
Well, I wonder if it's more of a copyright licensing kind of thing.
I'm not sure.
That's the first thing that came to my head when I started making those Milwaukee Dual images. Like,
Did it spell Milwaukee wrong when
On one of them it is, not all of them. No, not on every one of them. It was like M18 logo was close, but it was off just enough, and I think that's on purpose. Maybe I'm putting too much. Maybe we're thinking too hard on this. Maybe it's just not capable of reproducing images exact. I don't know. I know it can do a lot of things that we're not even going to get into today, but I do want to get into how it can be used in our business. So I use it quite often. I would say probably once a day, couple times a day, which I think is an often occurrence considering how I'm using it. So I'm using it to like reword emails regularly, once or twice, 3 times more a day, which is to me, again, like a lot I say because I'm not in the office every day.
Right.
But I'm using it because I'll start to type an email and then all of a sudden the email's getting a little longer. I like really short, concise emails. I will probably not read your letter if you send me one. And I think there's a much faster way to get to the point often.
Sure.
But I say that and I acknowledge this. I'm a plumber. I'm not using this as a crutch or anything, but like the reality is like I haven't been working in the corporate field or anything. And I have the opportunity quite often to speak with and interact with people who are in corporate, right? Yeah. We're doing video projects. We're doing promotions. We're doing all kinds of stuff with Mechanical Hub and with, manufacturers and their engineers and their marketing people and you name it.
Right.
And my speak, whether it's typed on a screen or in person, is very much different often than theirs is. And when I send an email, I might send something that seems quite rash or too curt and to the point. Sure. To where like, it needs polished a little bit. And so I've been using that. I've been just like, I'll type out my email, I'll copy it, paste it into, I used to do that. I'd type it in email and then copy it, paste. Now I just go to ChatGPT and I type it there and it's like, please reword this. And it gives me like 4 different variations and it's so useful. And I do check the spelling.
Yeah.
Usually in those cases though, like the spelling, like when you're like typing out text and stuff, it seems to be fine.
Yeah.
I'm not blindly copying and pasting because I have seen a couple weird, like punctuation in the wrong spot or something like that.
Right. Whatever. Something's weirded strangely. Yeah.
Yeah. But that was like so I say all that long-winded and everything, and I bring it up first because I think for me, that was the jumping off point. Yeah. I could see the value in like having somebody else reword something that might be more efficient and getting the point across, might be a little more polite. In the sense that where I'm not saying I'm not polite, but I think some people might read my emails and get an idea that I may be more upset than I am or something,
Yeah. Read more into it. Yep.
Yeah. And I think I've liked the results, put it that way. I'm going to just stop it there. I think it's worked out well for me. That was kind of the jumping off point, but I'm doing more, but you just did something yesterday. I think you said
earlier. When was it? Earlier this week or end of last week. Yeah. I went and did an inspection. A buyer is getting ready to buy this house and they said, hey, the home inspector won't do any kind of a boiler inspection. They just say, yes, it's got a boiler and you need to find somebody else to look at it. It's not leaking. That's about the extent of it.
And that's great. Actually, that's a totally acceptable scenario.
Totally fine. And so I went down to this house and looking at it, and there's an Avian boiler on the wall and radiant floor heat. And, it was decent out in the high 60s, maybe even closing in on the 70 mark.
Okay.
And I'm sitting there and I'm watching things go and I got a zone on and I'm like, boiler's targeting 125 degrees.
At 60 something degrees outside?
Yeah, right. And I'm like, that's weird. That shouldn't be there.
I know the problem.
Yeah. And I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, well, it's either programmed wrong or it doesn't have outdoor sensor connected, right? Yep. So I opened the boiler up and I just popped the cover off and I look inside and here's the blue wires plugged into the board. And they run across the boiler, and here's the outdoor sensor stuffed in the back of the cabinet inside the boiler.
Oh, it was actually connected.
Yeah, it was connected.
Well, then how in the world could it run?
Because they either had it turned off or I don't know. I didn't get into the programming because they don't own the house yet. Yeah. Right. So I'm like, cover back on. That's something we need to address. And so I wrote up, I just was like, I'm going to use ChatGPT to, pull me up a whatever on it, and
an explanation on what you're looking at.
And essentially I asked ChatGPT, can you explain the benefits of an outdoor sensor and why they're not connected? And I will just read off here what it said, what it replied with, and because I copied and pasted it. It says, it sounds like you're addressing a heating boiler that currently isn't utilizing its outdoor reset feature due to a bypass sensor. Ooh. Outdoor reset control is a valuable feature that adjusts the boiler's water temperature based on the outdoor temperature, enhancing energy efficiency by reducing fuel consumption when less heating is needed. Here's a breakdown of the points that you mentioned. Outdoor sensor bypassed. Many contractors bypass the outdoor sensor due to a lack of understanding how it is properly programmed. This can lead to the boiler running at higher temperatures than necessary, resulting in higher energy consumption and reduced efficiency. Wireless outdoor sensor installation is possible. Is possible. Installing a wireless outdoor sensor would allow the boiler to automatically adjust its operation. Anyway, goes on. There's 4 bullet points here. And they are spot on.
Yeah.
With what I was like, wow, like, huh. I guess I couldn't have said it better myself.
Right.
No,
go ahead.
And it seems appropriate and easy enough that, you could send it to basically any homeowner and say, hey, this is why we should hook this up.
Yeah, it's exactly. I mean, it's worded nicely. It's probably more efficient than you typing that all out. As long as you read through it and and it doesn't include anything you don't need, or it's not, worded improperly. Right. Yeah, that's a super useful feature. I did something recently just ahead of this recording just to see what it came up with. And I'll get into some of the other examples too, but as it relates to what you just did, right? And so I heard you say, like, I used it to tell me, like I asked it about outdoor reset and it told me all this stuff. And I'm like,
right.
Holy crap. You and I have sat in the same classrooms years and years and years ago where we were both learning right. outdoor reset and the importance and how to use it. And really just, you have to trust it, that kind of thing, which is the misunderstanding of how it works, and then the trust. And the trust is always based off of the misunderstanding. So those two hand in hand are why people aren't using it almost 9 out of 10 times. There are systems, of course, where you don't need it. It's just, it ain't going to help you.
Right.
But so I prompted ChatGPT to help me based off of your scenario. So I just this morning said, can you help me troubleshoot an electric water heater that doesn't seem to be working? The customer says it's running out of hot water after only a few minutes, but it's 80-gallon capacity. It gave me 9 steps. Each step has at least 2 bullet points on how that further explains each step. And then it gives you a summary, and I'll just give you a couple of them, and I'll give you the summary. So number 1, check the power supply. And that goes through circuit breaker and power switch. Okay, so like a disconnect.
Sure.
Then inspect the thermostat settings. Temperature settings, ensure thermostat is set to desired temperature, typically around 120 degrees Fahrenheit, 49 C, dual thermostats. If the heater has upper and lower thermostats, make sure both set correctly, blah, blah. Okay, so it goes through this 9 steps. The last one's inspect for leaks, okay, which makes total sense too. And however you want to go through this order of operations, it's telling you things like sediment buildup, dip tube, loose wiring. Here are the summaries of the steps. Verify power, check thermostat settings and functions, test heating elements, check for and remove sediment buildup, inspect and possibly replace the dip tube, ensure all wiring connections are secure, access hot water usage and demand, test thermostats, look for leaks. That was the summary after some very good, in my opinion, information, which brings me to this. I'm not suggesting that ChatGPT could ever replace real instruction from other experts. That's not what I'm saying.
Yep.
But like your example of, can you help me come up? Your intention was like, I don't want to have to type this out because if I do, I'm going to go. It's going to be an hour-long dissertation written in an email inspection report.
Right.
Give me like a few sentences on
bullet points.
Yes. And that's what this troubleshooting was. If you were standing in front of a piece of equipment like a water heater and you were a young plumber and you're like, I've seen it done a couple times when I was working with, Jim, and he did this. I don't, but not fully understanding like a step-by-step process, maybe omitting a couple of the crucial things that you're maybe not going to think about, like a dip tube. Sometimes with tank water heaters, you're just like, you forget that, a certain major manufacturer in the late 90s, early 2000s had about, a few 100,000 tank water heaters go out that the dip tube fell off into the tank.
Right.
Hasn't happened in a long time, but it did. And it was a major problem. And it was a significant issue. And, nobody's looking for a broken dip tube. So anyway, you could use it for some basic or even more in-depth information on troubleshooting a piece of equipment. Just is what it is.
Yeah.
Or just help you verify you're going through the right steps, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I've gotten, and it seems like it's primarily on my phone. I use Google Chrome.
Okay.
And there is a Chrome plugin.
Yeah.
Or a beta or something.
It's in beta still, yeah. Gemini? Yeah. Are you talking about that?
It could be.
Yeah.
That where it just is on your top of your search. When you search for something, it's just this little kind of a orangish icon.
Yeah, I believe.
And then it fills it in.
Yeah, I believe Google calls it Gemini, but it's in beta and it's going to be a paid thing as far as I understand it.
Yeah. I think at this point, depending on price point, obviously, I would probably pay for that because I am finding I've been using that for probably almost a year.
Okay. Wow.
I mean, early on, got a notification. Hey, would you like to try this?
Yeah.
And I was like,
I remember
sure.
that. Yeah.
Sure. I'll try it. And I've used it. I mean, I guess unknowingly in the beginning.
Yeah.
To find answers, common answers. This winter, it was one that we were getting calls from customers, during heating boiler stuff. And you just plug in an error code. What's an Avian E110?
Yeah.
Right.
The response,
and boom, here.
They're super thorough, gives you things like videos, all the things you suspect or expect out of like a Google search result, but faster and way more. Like it eliminates like the companies that are trying to sell you service on.
There's no sponsored.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's super.
Eventually that will be there, I'm sure. But
and Apple just announced this week that they're putting what they call Apple AI on their new iOS 18 or something like that. And like it's neat that you said that because it's perfect segue into like the Apple thing and our phones and just moving forward. That you said like you're either using it knowingly or unknowingly. Like it's built into these systems now, and it's just going to become how they function. Like search, like let's face it. I know number one and by a long shot is Google, right? So like for search engine, and anybody that thinks otherwise is like just either uninformed or in denial. I don't know why you would worry about that, but like that's where it's going to go. So Google is going to be using it. So you're probably already benefiting from it in one way or another, or not. I mean, you could look at some situations where it's not super accurate or whatnot. All this stuff has to be checked on. So back to the business stuff. And so like I started out like my dipping the toe, rewording emails. And then I'm like, I'm pretty good at this. So I'm like rewording my Google reviews. So if you start reading my recent Google reviews, which I know you follow me, thank you, by the way. They're quite well worded. And it's because ChatGPT took my review and made it better. But I was doing some more stuff on ChatGPT, and I have been lately. And so, I mean, here's one. What are some ways ChatGPT could assist plumbing business owners? And you can put any business in there, right? And it comes up with some really valuable information that just gets you thinking. It's not going to get you. I suppose you could dive deeper into every one of these, but how about customer service and engagement? It could help you with appointment scheduling, assist with scheduling and managing customer appointments. You can actually connect this to your calendars and start allowing it to be like fit Mrs. Jones boiler service of 2 hours. Here's her address into my calendar. Where's the best fit? Based off of other appointments you have that have addresses. So like it could start like optimizing your workflow based off of type of work, conditions, length of time needed, and where it's literally located. Yeah. Are you freaking kidding me? Like, this is insanity. Like, seriously. Yeah. And so if you started working this into your workflow, like at the office level of integrating it into a calendar and making sure, like we're using House Call Pro and stuff, like there's all the info. That's probably what's next with that platform and platforms like it. They've got the addresses. They've got the amount of time you need for the job because you've got it, in the booking information already. Like, can you imagine?
Right. Yeah. Well, and I mean, think about that. I would say most people have been using some form of it for years, right? Anybody that's used Siri is essentially using some variant, and you can tell because if you think about that, Siri, I mean, from where the whole Siri function started, right? It was pretty limited.
Yeah.
You could get it to do things, turn the volume up, turn the volume down, start a recording, make a note.
As long as it was all within your Apple
yes.
biosphere. What's that? Apple world, right? Like it had to be inside of those apps. Like one thing you can't do with Siri is tell it to, change your playlist on Spotify.
Correct. But you could ask it, hey, what's start asking it questions, and it can do some of that too. Is it limited? Yes, it's limited in comparison to what ChatGPT is doing. Right. It's limited in comparison to what Gemini is doing. Those are Siri 2.0, right? So I got to believe that this next gen Apple AI thing is going to be an expansion of that really steps up. I mean, I don't have any doubt in my mind that it's not going to be epic for,
I'm blown away at just the thoughts of what it might be able to do for me. Like I got pretty excited right there about the calendar stuff because honestly, that is a real world challenge that every one of our businesses, and I mean, I'm just one person and I could optimize big time. I promise you. Yeah. And I don't even use a GPS to get to half of places I'm going. So I obviously know my area quite well. You know what I mean? Like there is just you have to acknowledge that there's powerful tools here that could be integrated in so many different ways. And I haven't even begun to scratch the surface. Like I just asked it this morning, what was the other one I asked it up here? What's a good plumbing and HVAC small business owners topic for episode of their podcast? And it gives me 10 of them. And every one of them you could go in and deeper and peel back more layers of that onion. Financial management for small business owners. Provide tips in managing finances, budgeting and planning for growth. Discussing topics like pricing strategies, reducing operational costs, and securing funding can be very helpful. Hey, you think we've ever talked about any of these topics before?
No, not ever.
It's crazy. And I don't know. Do you have more to add? Because I do have one more thing, but I want you to sound on.
I know something that Cheryl and I are playing with, and I haven't dug into this, but having this conversation is kind of making me think, why am I dragging my feet on making this thing when I could have ChatGPT do it for me? And that is making essentially like a customer brochure, like an after install brochure, right? Yes. Like you go install a boiler. What do you tell the customer when you hand the customer a $15,000 heating system? Yep.
And they're like, what do I gotta do now?
Deer in the headlights, right? What happens when this happens? Yeah. How often do you need to come back and look at it? Yeah. I mean, like, I was like, we were going to make a little trifold brochure, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure that ChatGPT would probably, or some variant of the AI would probably make that a much better brochure than I could.
You could probably just create a land, so it'll help you make a web page. It'll literally help you make a website, and you could probably just create a landing page for your customer base, and link it with a QR code, and put a QR code right on the boiler with your name and number, and be like, questions, check this first, something like that, like a prompt on the QR code right on your equipment. And you could have your guys putting that on every single thing they install, minus faucets,
right?
Because I'm sure people don't want a QR code on their new body spray system.
Right.
You bring up the business stuff, to me is where my head immediately went. And like, I've used it already, and you saw it because I sent it to you. I used it recently to send out a text message in our house call software we use.
Sure.
I sent out a text message based off of where people live, and the last service date that I gave them. And I just said, so I didn't send it to somebody that I just put in a water heater for, because I was sending out a text message saying, hey, in the month of May and June, we're offering a discount on water heater replacements.
Sure.
And but I had it's worded nicely to even put in, suggest to put in some emoticons and stuff. And I'm like, heck yeah, why not? There's a little shower and a little, something like that, a little bathtub. And I'm like, heck yes. And I sent it out, and I booked a pool heater off of it. I booked 2 water heaters calls off of it, and a couple service calls, and just like, oh, that reminds me, so people got it and everything. Yeah. But the message was concise. I did get some people saying, stop, whatever. And that's great. It has nothing to do with ChatGPT, but I used it to create a text campaign that I had the capability of doing already in my software that I use every single day.
Right. It just sounded more professional by utilizing some AI.
And how it seems to operate a lot of times when you ask it questions like this, it gave me 3 different wordings, and it made suggestions like make it personal, use this type of coding. It doesn't know. I didn't prompt it that I'm going to use this. It automatically does that, but it was saying things like, make sure you use the person's name. And it was like, actually I've got that capability in this software already. It's just going to fill in their first name. I don't have it fill their first and last, whatever. It worked. Yeah. Okay. So last thing in closing, I want to, what I asked ChatGPT this morning?
What's that?
I asked it, let me find it. Have you listened to the Make Trades Great Again podcast? So this is the latest version of ChatGPT 4.0.
4.0.
And it said, yes, I'm familiar with the Make Trades Great Again podcast. It's a podcast that focuses on the trade industry, covering topics related to plumbing, HVAC, and other skilled trades. The hosts, who are experienced tradespeople themselves, discuss industry trends, share tips and tricks, and provide valuable insight for those working in the trades. It's a great resource for both seasoned professionals and newcomers to the field. If you have any specific questions about the podcast or need recommendations for particular episodes, feel free to ask. What?
Wrap that baby up. You can hit stop.
Oh my God. That's crazy. So I want to put out there to anybody watching or listening, remind those that listen that we do put these episodes out on YouTube. Hopefully each week, if I can get to it. I try to do it weekly. On YouTube, the Mechanical Hub YouTube channel has these episodes in video format. If that's what you like, we would appreciate it. I would greatly appreciate it if you at least checked it out or subscribe to the channel. And then, of course, in your podcast app, wherever you're listening to us, there's just a link right there that says you can send us a text message. You don't even have to DM us over on Instagram like you can. That's there too. But you can actually just send us a text message and we'll get it. And you just ask a question or, whatever. Reach out to us that way. We'd love to hear from you, especially on this topic. So we've been talking a lot. We repeated a couple topics like EVs. Those are interesting.
I got some good feedback.
That's great, and I can't wait to dive into that feedback in another episode. And also, I want to hear feedback on the ChatGPT stuff, or like the AI stuff, right? I keep saying ChatGPT. I know it's a brand. That's the one I'm using, right? I think it's already become the Kleenex, or it's close.
Yeah, it's close. Yeah.
But anyway, we feedback on this topic, maybe how you're using it. If you can help us out, hit me up. I'd really love to learn more on what you're doing, and I know Andy would too.
Absolutely.
All right, dude. You good?
That's a good topic.
This is a fun one.
Yeah.
I think I'm excited about it, obviously. It's good for my ADHD. Put it that way.
That's right.
So many possibilities. Right. All right, I'm going to hit stop now.
So many.
All right.
Do it.